Hey guys, so today I'll do a brief tutorial video on how to install quick release propellers onto your medium to large size quadcopter. So the ones I'll use to describe today's video are the Tarot quick release mechanism. Now these are made out of aluminium, 6061 I believe, and they're very strong and also very light. Each pair is about 1.5 grams for the top piece, and 1.5 grams for the bottom piece and 2.5 grams for the top piece. So the way they're installed is very simple actually. So the bottom piece actually lines up perfectly with most motors in that it has the 12mm gap between the holes, and there's 4 of them. So these will hold onto the lower piece, and then for your top piece you actually have the same thing, which is 12mm distance diameter holes, which then allow you to place the propeller directly onto it and then mount it using those holes. The shaft that it has in the middle is a 4mm shaft, so this will actually fit most T-motor style propellers. So let's start by installing the lower piece first onto the motor. Keep in mind that for this lower piece it doesn't come with any screws, so you'll need to use very short screws, probably 4 to 6mm screws, to make sure they don't dig too deep into the motor and end up messing with the ball bearings that are contained within the motor. So I'll get my 4 screws here. These are 6mm screws. So the first thing you do is you also need to have your tools ready. This is more like a Swiss Army knife kind of hex screw setup. So it has all different sizes, and most especially it has all the sizes I need for this particular installation. I won't use any thread lock for this tutorial. However, it is recommended that you use thread lock for anything that is mission critical. In fact, for any screws that you install on a drone, you have to make sure that you use thread lock on each one of them, because they'll eventually get loose and that may end up being a problem in future. So you make sure you install all 4 sides. It's a very simple process actually. You start with the first one. Make sure it's nice and tight, but don't over tighten, because you risk spoiling the thread on the motor. So then we install the next one. Yeah, and just like that, you have your lower piece mounted directly onto your motor. So now you can move on to the next phase, which is the top piece mounted onto the propeller. The best way you can know if you've installed them correctly is by checking what direction it actually gets tight through. If it tightens in the backwards orientation, in that if your propeller is supposed to spin in this direction, however it's tightening in the opposite direction, then that actually means that you've installed it correctly. And the reason being is that the propeller should actually be self-tightening when using a quick release mechanism. So if it spins in the opposite direction that it's supposed to spin, it means that when the motor spins in the correct direction, it'll actually be giving a tightening force to the propeller, which will in turn make it even more secure while flying. Yeah, and just like that, as you can see, it's finally installed, and it's a very secure mechanism. As I said, they use aluminium 6061, which is one of those aircraft grades, so it's actually quite sturdy. And this is a Tarot component, so you can trust the machining and engineering processes that they do. Yeah, so that's been my tutorial on how to install the quick release mechanism. In case of any questions or queries, please feel free to leave them below.